Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me at the back? Is that okay? Okay. Yeah. Just to let you know, we are live streaming on YouTube. There you go, a bit modern for everybody. But it basically means people can watch us live today. So those people online as well and who've dialed in, welcome today to our South West Yorkshire Partnership Foundation Teaching Trust, to our annual members meeting. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to everybody involved in not just organising this event, but being here today. Particularly those people, we call it our stallholders marketplace. There's lots of information out there, obviously, that we treasure as an organisation. That's important to us as well. So everybody involved in that, thank you very much indeed this morning. Hopefully this afternoon, you'll find out all about our trust. I must admit, I actually think this is probably one of the proudest days of a chair's I suppose, career in SWYPFT, because it allows us to showcase what we have been doing as well as what we plan to do moving forward as well. And it never, ever amazes me how much our staff have been doing over the last year, and it's just a fantastic, and I hope you'll see that. Throughout the presentation today, I'm not behind the lectern, I'm too small for that, so I've decided to stand at the side. So to my colleagues who are speaking, if you want to stand at the side, do feel free. Maybe me and Shuba. That's all, Poby. I don't know. But anyway, you can do that. But what I'd say, in order today, we're going to be followed up with Mark and Dawn. We'll be looking at performance. We'll be looking at Cheswold Park, looking at our objectives and our achievements. That will then follow with Dawn, look at our strategy, our priorities, and a look to the future and our people. Daryl, our Director of Nursing, will then follow with our quality. Adrian, our Finance Director, will then talk about finances. John Leville, our lead governor, will talk about Members' Council, and we'll finish off with Professor Sub Thargesh and our new associate Ned designate from the University of Leeds, Mitch Waterman, which you'll hear about being what it feels like to be a teaching trust, which obviously we're very proud of. However, statutorily, what I've got to do, just so I've got the same jacket on, I guess, this time, what I've got to do statutorily is actually just talk a little bit about our board, and that's my job, I guess. So first of all, you'll be able to see in front of you, we need to say a special thank you to all of those people that have been on our board over the last year. And I have to say, as a chair, it's been quite a busy time in the last 12 months because we've had a lot of changes on our board, new starters, as well as colleagues that have left. So I'd like to say a special thank you, first of all, to Kate Quayle. She served 7 years with SWYPFT, a magnificent non-exec director. Mandy Rayner, one of our non-exec directors, served at least 4 to 5 years with SWYPFT again. Left due to, I think, becoming a grandma and having a great time with the family. We had David Webster served with us for the full term of 3 years, and we need to thank David for that. We had Afana Mahmood, one of our non-exec directors, served with us for 7 years. Again, another fabulous non-exec director. We'd have kept all these forever if we could. Carol Harris was our former Chief Operating Officer, now working in Manchester, so thank you to Carol. And finally, Sean Rayner was Exec Director of Provider Development. Fortunately, we've kept Sean on part-time, and he's helping us with all our neighbourhood work, but he was an integral part of our executive team. So I'd like to, on behalf of the Trust Board and indeed the whole of SWYPFT, to thank our colleagues. We are, however, blessed with having to appoint new people, and I would say I am a bit of a stickler, and I never believe you should appoint anybody who you don't think is either as good, if not better than yourself. And I firmly believe that of the new colleagues we've appointed onto our board. In terms of our executive colleagues, we've got Christine Berriton, who at the moment is Interim Chief People Officer. We say interim, we'll be going out in the new year for a permanent position on that, so thank you to Christine. We're then going to move down to Adele Fox, our Chief Operating Officer. Adele joined us this year, so welcome Adele to the post, she's made a magnificent entry into the trust, and I'm sure those people who don't know her, you'll get to know her. She's doing a sterling job. Moving on then to the non-executive directors, I'd like to say a massive, first of all, thank you to Gary Ellis, non-exec director. We pinched him from Mid-York, I'll be honest with you. A lot of experience from Gary, so thank you, Gary, for joining us. I'd also like to say a welcome to Margaret Kitchen, who is the Regional Director of Nursing in her past history. Again, I'd like to say thank you to Margaret. Both of those colleagues have extensive board experience in the National Health Service. Moving on, we then had to look at people beyond the NHS, and I'm proud to say we appointed a very established guy called, here where he is, Martin Neeson. Not on the bottom of the list, he is, but he isn't. Martin, at the end of the day, joined our trust from a finance business sector and brings very new skills to our board, which is exciting moving forward. And then finally, but not least, is Rakaya Khan. Rakaya works in the voluntary sector, in charge of, looking at women coming out of prison, etc. And Rakaya Khan keeps us all grounded, which is fantastic. So on behalf of myself, to those colleagues gone and the new colleagues joining us, thank you very much indeed. And I'm pleased to say, as a board, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but I will say this, as a unitary board of executives and non-executive directors, I genuinely believe SWYPFT is in a strong place to manage this new turbulent agenda facing the NHS with style, pride and capability, and I think we can all do that. These are the faces you might see. Some of you will know them, some of you won't. The only one missing off there is Mitch from the university. You'll see Mitch talking later. He's only designated at the moment. We're going to do all sorts of different things on Mitch at the moment to get him into our board, but that's just about to happen. Otherwise, his picture would be up there, but you'll see him. And as I say, they're the faces. Okay. I think finally it's the video, isn't it? Right. This video, we're allowed to pick videos, and I really wanted this video sharing as part of what I think is important as a chair and has been important to me. And I wouldn't want to embarrass anybody, but I think our carers who support our organisation are so important to our trust. This video, I hope, showcases the work that they've done and the dedicated team they have across our trust. So I'm very proud of this particular team. They did win an award, and I do think they're instrumental in driving that carer agenda. So please enjoy the video, and then each of my colleagues will follow on. Thank you.
The work that I do across the Trust for the Equality and Inclusion team and the Staff Carers Network is to help put triangle of care in place, which is a benchmark for our unpaid carers. We can put things in place to ensure that our staff, who are carers, have things in place to keep them well and healthy. We have developed resources that are co-developed by carers. If you come under the Trust as a carer, you should be given a carers pathway leaflet, our carers passport and a carers lanyard.
Recently, my son's had an admission, so I've reached out again for carer support. One of the ways that the team have helped me and supported me is the new lanyard, which says I'm a carer. To get that relationship with the ward or with the community teams and to be able to be recognised as that. Oh, it's made a massive difference because it's talking to someone that actually understands what you're going through. Having the support is amazing.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm sure many of you know, but I'm Mark Brooks, Chief Executive, and I'm really proud and privileged to lead this organisation and speak at my 5th annual members meeting today. As Marie said, we're going to hear from a number of directors. We're going to go into a little bit more detail. I've got the very fortuitous role of being able to share the achievements of our 5,000 colleagues today. And as I said earlier, I'm so proud and privileged to lead the organisation and lead such a dedicated and committed group of people across all the services that we provide. I would just reiterate a few thank yous up front in terms of people attending today. I know it's taken some time out of your schedules to attend, but also I think when we put these slides together and plan for the annual members meeting, we really appreciate actually everybody who's involved in helping this organisation be the success that it is and provide the care that we do. So whether that be our service users, families and carers, who actually we would not be here without, our 5,000 plus colleagues, our governors, non-executive directors, partner organisations and stakeholders we work with. A huge thank you to all of you for showing the interest that you do and actually helping us deliver what we do deliver. I am particularly pleased today as well, as Marie said, to welcome Mitch, and we're using today as an opportunity to actually formally launch our accreditation as a teaching trust, which I think is going to bring some fantastic benefits to us and the university. So delighted to welcome Mitch, and earlier we had other colleagues from the University of Leeds as well, and Shuba and Mitch will speak later about that. What we do every month, we have a new starters event, and we have a welcome event, and we actually ask people why they do the job they do, or why they joined the NHS. And the most common reasons are they want to give something back, they've got lived experience, they want to make a difference, and they want to help people that are vulnerable, and they want to be part of a great team. And hopefully what I'm going to explain to you in the next 10 minutes or so is going to really bring some of that to life. So Andy, if we can just maybe move on to the next slide. What we always tend to do with all of our meetings in the organisation, we're a values-led organisation. So we start with our purpose. And our purpose is very simple. We help people reach their potential and live well in their communities. And I don't think anybody can argue with those small number of words, but the enormous impact that can have on the population of people that we're caring for. And our values, who can argue with any of these? We put the person first in the centre. We know that families and carers matter. We're respectful, honest, open, transparent. We aim to be improve and be outstanding. And we're relevant today and ready for tomorrow. And again, I'm hoping what you're going to hear over the next hour or so is actually going to help bring us some of that to life. And in terms of our values, I mean, there's some fantastic data shown there by our colleagues about what it's like to work at SWYPFT and actually how they would recommend the care that we provide. What we ask people to do actually in their teams is actually really consider each time that they meet as a group how well we're living our values. Actually, let's be honest, we don't get everything right. So when we don't get things right, how do we learn from that? And actually how we respond to something that goes wrong is actually incredibly important. We have our values in our appraisals, our objectives. Dawn will talk later about our priorities and strategy. As I say, we use them in our team meetings. So I make no apologies for starting with our trust values and actually really imploring the importance of them to us as an organisation. But I do want to just maybe spend a bit of time on the next slide, Andy, which is about the context in which we're operating. And I don't think this will come as a surprise to anybody. And I know there's some colleagues from other organisations here today, and I'm sure these will be talked about in your own trust as well. So when we come into the next section, Dawn will talk a little bit more about what the outlook looks like for the next few years. But we do have a background that just over a year into the new government, they've actually launched their 10-year health plan for England, which has got the 3 shifts as the key component parts of that 10-year strategy, which is actually providing more care out of hospital into communities, moving from analogue into digital, and actually moving more from sickness to prevention. So that's something that obviously we and our partner organisations are working out what does that actually really mean to us and how can we make the biggest impact we can to actually bring that 10-year strategy to life. But there's a lot of turmoil at the moment as well. The environment is challenging. Fairly recently, the abolition of NHS England was announced, and in the forthcoming 12 to 18 months that in effect will be merged with the Department of Health and Social Care. Our integrated care boards that we've worked with for the last 3 or 4 years actually have been given a very different role as strategic commissioners and have been instructed to actually save 50% of their costs. So there's a lot of change going to take place there. There's enormous financial pressure in the system, whereas the NHS actually benefited pretty well from, additional funding compared to other public sector bodies. It's not as high as the demand increase and the cost that we're incurring. So there are significant financial pressures, not just in our organisation, but across the wider NHS. And the demand that we're facing is unrelentless. I often look at our inpatient wards, where typically we are at least at 100% full all of the time. We look at the demand for our CAM services, that's our child and adolescent mental health services, where since the pandemic, the demand for those services has increased by over 50%. So huge demand on our services, and we don't see any sign. We've had recent industrial action by resident doctors, and other unions are actually going out to ballot at the moment. So there is a potential period for greater unrest coming up over the coming months. And the cost of living issues are still with us. I noticed this morning that inflation is still at 3.8%, with food prices increasing beyond that. So that's a real challenge, I think, for the services we provide and the places that we do, for our colleagues and our service users as well. And I think we're all very aware of some community tensions that are around at the moment. And I think it's up to us as an organisation to really set the right tone, support our colleagues, and ensure that actually whoever works in our organisation does not face any form of discrimination. We value the benefits that diversity brings, and we are an inclusive organisation. So I've told you some things that are a bit of a challenge. I think what I really want to get the message across is that despite that context, and what you'll see coming up is actually some fantastic achievements by our colleagues. So despite the challenges that we're facing, we continue to really focus on how we can provide the best possible care for the people that use our services and their families and carers. And actually there are some plenty of positive things that have put us in a good position as well. We've got a successful financial track record. Our recruitment has actually been strong in recent years, so actually we are better staffed than we were a number of years ago. And as always when there's challenges, it's actually about how we respond. And it's about achieving that to enable us to use the change opportunities to us and provide the best possible care that we can. So if we can just move on, please, Andy. And I'll just talk a little bit about SWYPFT as an organisation, how we fit in. And it's actually, I think it's a really fascinating organisation to work in for many reasons. And I think the fact that we work in 4 different places to start with, it's incredibly important we work in partnership. We cannot provide the services we provide in isolation. That might be with our commissioners, it might be with our acute colleagues, it's with the independent sector, with the voluntary and community sector, it's working with our families and carers, etc. And you'll see there that within the 4 places in which we work, in Calderdale, Kirklees, Barnsley and Wakefield, just on the right-hand side are a number of partnership arrangements that we have and who we work with. And the aim of those really is actually to help us develop more integrated care, so that we're providing care in a more seamless manner for the people that use our services. And I think we've made some great progress on that over the last 3 or 4 years, but I think as neighbourhood care develops further, we've got a great opportunity to do that even more in the coming years. And what I will say is, as an organisation, partnership is our name. And actually we really do value working in partnership with everybody that we do work with, and actually coming together helps us provide the care that we do. So again, if we can just possibly move on, please, Andy. I am going to talk about a major transaction that actually took place at the very beginning of the last, just very shortly after the last annual members meeting, which back in March 2024, we were approached by NHS England to consider the possibility of taking over an independent sector organisation, Cheswell Park Hospital in Doncaster. Cheswell Park Hospital is a 112-bedded unit that provides adult secure services, so very similar to some of the services we provide at Fieldhead Hospital here. 112 beds with about 300 staff, and the organisation had both quality and financial challenges. So we basically worked in record time actually to identify whether that was something we were able to do or not. And we had some fantastic support from NHS England who helped to fund it. We had some fantastic support from colleagues in other organisations who recognised the importance of retaining care locally and actually retaining jobs for over 300 people. And we were able to actually complete that transaction in very early October 2024. So a huge thank you to everybody involved with that. And then especially actually what's happened since then. So what we've been able to do in the last 12 months is that the organisation was previously not able to admit people because of quality concerns. We've been able to open to readmissions, and we've almost 20 people that have been admitted into that care in the last few months. We've implemented a new patient record system. We've improved the finances. We're not there yet, but we've made an improvement, and we're harmonising policies and procedures. And we've done a lot of work actually with colleagues there as well, just to make sure that people feel part of SWYPFT as an organisation. So a huge thank you to everybody at Cheswold and who's contributed to actually enabling us that transaction to take place. If I move on then, please, Andy. What I'm going to do now, it's difficult to do this for a trust of our type when you think we operate in 4 places. We also provide specialist forensic services. We've got so many different services actually which we are proud of and which we want to look at how we are performing against. So I could have put a whole, Marie regularly tells us I think we've got 750 metrics in our integrated performance report. I'm not going to go through all of those. So apologies to any services that are not included here, but I'm going to just tick out some really key metrics on how we've performed over the last 12 months. One thing that's really important for us, and actually for people that use our care, is if they require an inpatient bed, is to be looked after as close to home as possible, so where families and loved ones are close and able to visit. So we don't really want out-of-area bed placements. There are some organisations actually across the country that have 20, 30, 40, 50 out-of-area bed placements. We typically had around 5 in the last financial year, facing incredible pressures to do that, but some fantastic work that our colleagues have done to keep it like that. I mentioned about the access and the demand on our child and adolescent mental health services. So despite increases in demand, we're still seeing 73% of people within 18 weeks for the first appointment. That isn't where we want it to be. We want it to be better, but given the demand that we've got, it demonstrates some really hard work by our colleagues to get there. With our Barnsley physical community services, our 2-hour crisis response regularly is in excess of what the national standards are. Really key measure for us is actually following up anybody who's been discharged from a mental health inpatient ward within 72 hours. Again, we always meet that target. We did spot over a year ago that maybe we weren't actually as good as we could have been at access to our learning disability services in as timely manner as possible. We did some really detailed improvement work to fully understand what the problem was and how we could improve. And I'm really delighted to say for the last 9 months, we've actually basically achieving our targets on access to our learning disability care within the 18-week target. We've also made great improvements on really important issues like risk assessments, sharing of care plans. And also, from a quality perspective, we are regularly asked to actually contribute to national meetings. That might be with NHS providers, NHS Confederation. And that's just a recognition of some of the work that our colleagues are completing. So again, if we just move on, please, Andy, to the next slide. And I'll talk, where best place to work and learn. Dawn will cover this in a little bit more detail, so I'll just give a couple of headlines. 80% of our cost base is staff. We know the only way we can be successful as an organisation, provide the best possible care, is to ensure that our colleagues actually feel valued at work and it's the best place to work and learn. I say Dawn will cover this in a little bit more detail. I'm just going to draw out a couple of points that maybe Dawn won't cover specifically on the metrics, which is about our workforce for the future and the importance of apprenticeships. We've got about 220 people within our 5,000 workforce that are actually in a modern apprenticeship programme. And we've had some fantastic success out of that through a whole range of different roles. And we had 68 people who actually commenced on the programme last year. We're also very keen that actually we utilise people with lived experience actually to help us. That might be to inform how our services are working, how we can improve them for the future. So there's some examples there of how we've used people with lived experience and supporting our communities of practice and sharing stories and staff experiences. So again, if we can just move on again, Andy, and talk about partnership. Well, I've talked about the importance of partnership already. And again, just a couple of examples of other things that we do when we're working in partnership with other organisations. We actually, in line with our colleagues across West and South Yorkshire, we've established a perinatal mental health collaborative in the last year. We do some fantastic work actually on research and development. We had a very successful conference a few months ago where again we work with our partners and we've seen some really fantastic improvements in our exposure to research and development in recent years and the standing in which we're recognised for that in a mental health environment. We hold a suicide prevention conference again with some of our colleagues and other organisations, and we have a whole range of different awareness weeks. So we've had our mental health awareness week, and we try and really raise the profile of some of the key issues that impact upon our services through those awareness weeks. And again, if we could just talk about value, Adrian will cover that in his detailed presentation in a short moment. What I'm really delighted to say, though, is actually ever since I've been with the Trust, and I'm into my 10th year now, we've achieved our financial targets every single year. We did that last year, and we weren't the only Trust to do that, but there were plenty that didn't as well. So we've done a very, very successful job in actually retaining credibility and control with our financial performance. I'm sure Shuba might even speak about it later, but our electronic prescribing system has gone live, and that's making real differences both to our quality of prescribing, but also actually we've got some good cost control in there as well. Actually, the importance of carbon reduction and carbon literacy, we actually have a sustainability strategy, and we put some colleagues through some carbon literacy training as well. So I think just final couple of slides from me, please, Andy, and I will talk a little bit about some of our other achievements. And I will just dwell on these. So I've spoken about the Teaching Trust, so I'm not going to actually steal the thunder from Shuba and Mitch, but as I say, really delighted we're formally launching our Teaching Trust status today. I have looked at other similar providers across the country, and assuming they all put teaching in their name, which I think they would be expected to do, I believe we're one of only 2 mental health community providers in the country that's achieved that accreditation. So I'm sure Shuba and Mitch will explain it's been a long process, and rightfully a very robust process, but again that's I think fantastic recognition of the organisation, but particularly our colleagues who've worked on that as well. Dawn will talk about our priorities, but we have actually formally launched our Trust strategy, which Dawn talked about last year, and during the year we've actually launched a new clinical strategy, a new digital strategy, and an updated strategy on equality, diversity and inclusion. And really importantly, actually, we are always looking to transform our services. We've had a long-standing programme to transform inpatient care and older people's services. We had an excellent consultation programme that took place last year, and actually our programme is now actually commenced. We're working through the contractual arrangements and hoping to start building work here at Fieldhead in the non-too-distant future. These, as I just reiterated, are just a small sample of some of the work that we've been doing in the last year. So if we just move on, and again, very similar, I want to celebrate some of the successes that our colleagues have achieved over the last 12 months. And as I mentioned earlier, we are regularly having colleagues that are recognised nationally, regionally, being asked to speak at conferences to explain what we're doing in SWYPFT, and we'll continue to try to do that. At the welcome events, Marie and I, we presented a few slides, and there's a fairly slide that could be quite mundane. It just talks about the number of contacts we make every month, which is roughly 80,000. What I always like to leave the message with is that isn't just a number. That's 80,000 people who actually require our care, often at some of the most vulnerable times of their lives. That's what our colleagues come to work to do day in, day out. And that's why I'm so proud to lead the organisation. So the 80,000, it is a number, absolutely, but it's what lies behind it, and the people, their families, friends and colleagues and loved ones, that is the most important part of that. Our volunteers, we invest in volunteers, we recognise the benefits they bring. And then just a couple of other examples of what we've done to actually try and improve people's lives. So our speech and language therapy team have actually developed an app for children in Barnsley who stammer. We've had some fantastic feedback about that. Working across all of our places, there are some very, very distinct and really quite appalling inequalities suffered by people with a severe mental illness and learning disability. What can help is having a regular physical health check each year and an action plan from that. So we've worked in conjunction with our partners to ensure that there's an increasing prevalence of those annual health checks taking place. I'm pleased to say across all of West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire, we're seeing far better and greater take-up of those annual health checks, which will hopefully make a difference to people who actually need the care and support. We've had recognition for our carers programme and our triangle of care, our pulmonary rehab team. Looking at our estate, we have some really actually, I was at a meeting not long ago. We had a new starter who actually commented on the cleanliness of our wards and our facilities. That's fantastic recognition of our estates and facilities team. We've been asked to participate in research studies. Our learning disability team has actually moved to zero seclusions over the course of the last 12 months, which again makes a massive impact in improving care and how we provide it. So that is just literally a microcosm of things that we've done. As I say, that's why I think those highlights is why I'm so proud to lead the organisation, and I have such a privileged position of leading the 5,000 colleagues that work with us. So just to reiterate my thanks to you all for attending today and actually your contribution to what we've achieved. And with that, I'd like to hand over to our Deputy Chief Executive and Director of Strategy, Inclusion and Change, Dawn, who will talk about our strategy and outlook.
Thank you, Mark. That's got to be the longest title, I think, of anybody here today. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to pick up some of the points that Mark's made and talk about, particularly some of the strategic works. As Mark said, we launched at our meeting last year our trust strategy, and just as a reminder, we did that with significant engagement from our colleagues. So almost a quarter of our colleagues contributed directly to the development of the strategy, as did 1,300 members of our communities. So we intentionally developed our approach collaboratively. And as Mark, I think Mark used the word turmoil for our external environment, which I think is a really good word to describe what we are seeing. So us having a really clear strategic view internally is really important to give clarity and focus to our colleagues. So having got the strategic position that we have, and you'll notice the values there, living our values is our first objective. We've then set about thinking about what are our priorities for this year, because there is a lot happening in the external environment, and the reality is you can't do everything. So you have to be really selective at where you focus your energy and your time. So this year we've done this with our improvement priorities. So living our values is where we start. That's why it's at the bottom of the screen, and we turn those into verbs. It's about the way we behave and the way we run our business and our services. So for the second objectives, we've promised our colleagues and our communities that we'll be the best that we can be. And we have 4 sections within that. We will deliver the very best quality and safety services. We'll deliver the best value, we'll be the best place to work and learn, and we'll be the best partner. And Mark's already picked up on some of the best place to work and learn and the best partner. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time saying something about best quality, and I'll just refer to best value, but I won't steal Adrian's thunder because Adrian's going to talk about finance and resources later on in the agenda. Darryl will also pick up quality. But in terms of how we wanted to focus our improvement resources for this year, we've thought particularly about clinical pathways. So some of the feedback that we got from the strategy refresh was our colleagues telling us that they wanted to maximise the time to care. They wanted to reduce the clinical admin burden, and they needed systems that help them do that, electronic systems to help them do that. So what that's looking like this year are things like caseload management systems. We're looking at patient flow systems, and we're looking at how we can make sure that we've got support around access. Through all of these priorities and recognising the financial position we are in, the board have been clear that our services will be safe. And that is a very minimum. We'll never ever sacrifice on safety, and we need to look for innovative ways to make us more productive and efficient, both to improve the experience of and outcomes of our patients, but also to improve the experience of our colleagues who are delivering our services every day. As we move forward, Mark's talked a little bit about the outlooks. The next slide, Andy. So Mark's talked about these shifts, and he's talked particularly about the 10-year plan. And we've taken the 10-year plan and all the other guidance that's coming out from NHS England almost weekly. We've taken that really carefully, and we've clearly had very in-depth conversations across the organisation, particularly with our board, around what does this mean for us. So we've got our strategic position, we know what our values are, we know where we want to be, we know where our strengths are, and we've got areas for improvement. So what does that mean? And as part of the 10-year plan, the new operating model, as Mark's already alluded to, is materialising, and we are working to understand what that means. And particularly for us, there's the important reinvigoration of foundation trusts. So we're waiting to understand what that means, but we are working proactively to make sure we're ahead of the game so that when that process begins, we're at the front of the pack, given the strengths we've got in our organisations. So the outlook going forward. So it is true it's challenging in the NHS. It absolutely is, and Mark's talked through some of that. What we've also talked through, though, are some of the strengths we've got in our organisation, and it's really important that we hold on to those strengths, I think, because Mark's talked about the 87,000 contacts we have every single month with members of our community. We have to make sure that our colleagues feel well equipped and turn up to be the best that they can be, so they can deliver the very best for our patients and service users. Because regardless of the turmoil that we're experiencing in terms of operating models or guidance from NHS England, our patients need us to be the best we can be, and they need us to be there when they need us. So it's really important that we embrace this outlook really positively, which we are doing. So one of the things I always think about is hope. And I'm always reminded of Nelson Mandela when he said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." And that's really important, because we've got to instill hope in our colleagues, but also in our communities. However, those of that you know me well also know that the next thing I always say is, but hope is not a plan. So we've got to have the hope, and we've got to have a plan that helps us deliver that. And these are some of the ways that we are making sure that we do that, whilst living our values and really mindful of our mission. So we're absolutely delighted there's going to be a national workforce plan published. I think that's something that's been lacking in the NHS, and that will give us direction that helps us have a workforce fit for the future. I'll not say anything else about teaching hospital status, so I don't steal any more thunder. But that's a great opportunity for us to have rigour and evidence-based planning. We're delighted that there's multi-year planning at last coming in the NHS from a policy position, which is incredibly important, and that will really make a difference. Our organisational strategy is a 5-year strategy, so being able to plan for multiple years is really important. Now, none of that underestimates the financial challenges and our demand challenges. So even standing still is not an option for us, because we're seeing increases in demand. So that's why linking together our strengths with the opportunities that are presented with the new NHS policies is really, really important. And of course, we need to have a good grip on our organisation. We need to understand where we're good, where we're strong, where the challenges are, and we need to provide assurance to our board and our governors that we are well governed. So we're looking at how we can be even better at some of that work by linking our initiatives and our resources together. And that's progressing really well. So that is how we are looking at being the best we can be. And I guess as a director of strategy, this is really exciting because there's lots coming at us nationally that means we can really position our organisation well, always balancing that line between hope and challenge. So with that, I'll move on to some of our slides talking about our people. And as Mark said, our colleagues are really our critical resource. Without our colleagues, none of this happens. And one of the things I'm going to be bold and say from our staff survey was we are doing very well in the organisation around how we are supporting our colleagues. So in the National Staff Survey last year, across mental health providers in Yorkshire and Humber, we were first or second in terms of each of the 9 section of results. And when you look at that across our trust across West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire, we're repeatedly in the top 2 or 3. So we are successful, and we have got some key success because I think we live our values in terms of how our colleagues feel about how they work here. I don't say that with any sense of complacency, and I'll come on to that shortly. We have got some key challenges that we still need to work on, but I think it's important to recognise the hard work that colleagues have put into supporting our colleagues and for them to support each other. One of the ways we do that is with our Excellence Awards, and this might be today is definitely a celebratory event. This is my absolute favourite event because it really reminds you of why we're here. And we did have a long think about the Excellence Awards, given the financial environment. How do we make sure that we can demonstrate that this is huge value for money? And what we decided was it's really important to celebrate our colleagues. And so we took measures to make sure that we reduced the cost of it and we increased our sponsorship. But it was really important to have our annual thank you to colleagues. And what you can see is some snippets up here. Each of our we had 319 entries, which was the most entries we'd ever had, and we had 200 people join us on the evening. So all the entries have a video resource that talked about their work. I beg your pardon. Each of the the shortlisted applicants had a video montage explaining their project. They are on our website, so please do go and look at those because they are utterly heartwarming. And if you're having a bad day, it's a really good resource to go and have a look at. So that's in terms of thank you. So what are we going to do going forward then? So we now, Christine Brereton is working at pace on our people strategy. So we know there is a national strategy coming, so we need to be well positioned for that. You can see here we're working on the best place to work. What does that mean? How do we create inclusion? We need to create a supportive environment and also an empowering environment where people can really bring their best selves to work to be the best they can be for our colleagues and learning likewise. How do we foster that culture of continual learning and growth and development, which when you're really busy is very easy to forget about. So we need to make sure we're balancing the opportunities for development and growth in the busyness of every day. And of course, as part of that will be living our values, which links back to what I said about governance before. How are we governing the organisation to make sure we live our values? So I'll move on to some numbers and some specifics. We have put a real effort into data, and that means we can understand our organisation better. So particularly around equality, diversity, inclusion training and our equality data. We have really good dashboard systems of understanding where we are progressing well, and that's really important, but it also shows where we've got extra work to do because it helps us focus our resources. Mark's mentioned carers, and I will also just say that we are delighted to be the first trust in the north of England to achieve the confident carer status. So we're absolutely delighted that we're being the best that we can be on this, and we're actually only the 3rd organisation nationally to achieve this award as well. So that's a real achievement that we're very proud of. What some of the feedback we had in our strategy was about remembering that our colleagues are a community in of themselves, and there was real feedback about how we connect our colleagues, and some of the way we've done that is with our health and wellbeing champions in place. We've got more than 130 of those now, and we board members regularly attend those meetings and provide cake where we can. I think we can see a number of things on here. I'll come back to, tea services next. I'll come back to tea services. Thanks, Andy. So tea services, in old money, that's BTEC to people of I was going to say my generation, but I'll get in. So BTEC was, and new T levels. Now, these are really important because this is about how we can really attract a broader range of people to work with us. And the really exciting example this shows how we can bring people from the communities we serve into a position of employment with us. So you can see a picture of Sam here, who recently joined the Barnsley General Community Services team. And the T level is about gaining knowledge and experience through hours worked, and you can see there the 315 hours of hands-on work, which meant then Sam was in a position to apply for a role with us, and he's now in post. So this is a really important way to think about health inequalities and to think about how our communities represent, our colleagues represent the communities they serve. And then I think finally from me, just some numbers, and I'll talk through some of them for just very briefly. So you've got there the staffing post. This was a snapshot of the 31st of March, by the way. So if you're eagle-eyed and you've looked at some of the 700 and odd metrics in our IPR, you'll see some differences. This was a snapshot in time. So for the 31st of March, you can see the numbers here. I think the thing I would point out is our staff turnover is 8.6%, which is actually quite low in the NHS. Generally, they're working at between 10 and 12%. So that plus our staff stability figure shows that we are quite successful in attracting but also retaining staff, which is really important. And we are particularly strong at retaining our medical and nursing colleagues as well. So that's really important. Our sickness levels at 5.3%, we always strive for that to be lower, but again, that's well in the pack in terms of some of the rates of sickness of other organisations. Of course, you have seasonal variation on that. Our staff appraisal cut at the end of March was only 83%. It is now back up to the mid-90s where it should be. We were changing over a system at the time, so there was a reporting issue there. But the months since then, we've been where we needed to be in the 90s. And you can see there our mandatory training compliance that you've already seen there. So there's some of the numbers really that underpin some of the things that I've talked about in terms of people. And then finally, it's an opportunity to say a really big thank you. It's a privilege to work in the NHS. It's a privilege to work at SWYPFT particularly, but it's hard work, and it's hard work for our frontline colleagues. So it's an opportunity to say thank you for everyone who supports those 85,000 contacts every month. And then I've got a really nice job to do now, which is to introduce the next video that you're going to see. And the really heartwarming thing about this video is it shows how we live our mission, which is to keep people well in their community. But it also shows that health just isn't just about the interaction between a patient and a clinician. It's about connecting with others. Andy.
So the Early Intervention in Psychosis team in Calderdale have linked up with St Augustine's, a charity who support refugees and asylum seekers. We meet up every Wednesday at Calderdale College to play football. We've gone from 5-a-side to over 30 attendees every week. It's making a positive difference. It's helping people who are isolated. It's promoting equality so everyone can come along and have a go. When we ran the 5-a-side group indoors, Arslan was one of the young men that used to come and ask if he could play. At the time he was seeking asylum. So he now is employed by St Augustine's and he brings the group, and he often speaks about that opportunity he was given and how it supported him.
During the year we will work with about more than 100 people because people comes and goes from Halifax. We have at least 10 different languages. Language barrier is one of the main issues we have. As long as you can kick the ball, you can speak as many languages as you want. Football helps to bring everyone together, to make friends and have fun and share happiness.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm Darryl Thompson. I'm the Trust Chief Nurse and Director of Quality and Professions, and I'm here to present our quality account. Now, our quality account is a publication each year that's available on the Trust website that shows our progress against a defined set of some national metrics, but also against our defined quality priorities. So we updated these in 2021, and these remained a focus for us in 2024-25, and there will, as we go along, there will be some examples against each of them, against safe and responsive care, equality, inclusion and equity, and health and well-being and experience of staff. Now, we are looking at this again. As Mark mentioned, we now have a clinical strategy, we now have the new trust strategy, and we're also waiting for the National Quality Board's new quality strategy in April 26. So we will be reviewing our quality strategy in line with all of those developments. Thank you, Andy. So some examples around safe and responsive care. So the first example here is the urgent community response. Now, that's been mentioned already, and I'm not going to talk about it in detail here because that will be the content of the video that you'll all have opportunity to watch later. We've got the Kirklees 0 to 18 Children and Young People Primary Care Network Service. Now, young people's mental health and well-being is a clear national focus. This is our connection with the primary care and making sure that we provide early intervention for those young people. And it's an assessment, short-term and low-level intervention service. We've also developed and continue to develop something called our quality assurance system. So that's how we oversee as an organisation the quality of care that's being provided in different teams. Where teams are doing things that are really outstanding, how can we spread that using the quality improvement model? Where teams might need some more support, how can we put that into place? We've also had a particular focus on clinical record keeping. Now, one of the things we've done, Mark mentioned about improved performance around sharing a care plan. We've done an awful lot of work around person-centred care planning so that the content of that care plan, the person feels they can hear their voice in it, that it's very much about them, and then they've got a copy of it to use as they see fit. So that's been a significant development across the organisation, and we report how well we do around sharing that with the people in our care. Next slide, Andy. Our next quality priority is equality, inclusion and equity. Now, one of the things that we've mentioned here has already been mentioned in the equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. Within the quality account, it says that that's in development. We're now at a place that that's signed off, but clearly that's been a huge focus of it, to that weaving of equality and inclusion all the way through everything that we do. And as part of that, we've also co-produced a plan to deliver the patient carer race equality framework. We've got the culture of care. Now, this is a national programme that we've committed to around overseeing how we can make sure within all of our mental health and inpatient wards a particular set of focus, and that includes such as trauma-informed, autism-friendly, really focusing on the experience of people in our care and the support for those staff who are doing great things every day. We've also got as an independent line of work our progress about being a trauma-informed organisation. So this is partly recognising that people in our care will arrive with trauma, and we are moving from a what's wrong with you to what's happened to you and how can we help model, but also recognising that our colleagues who we employ will arrive with trauma in their life and might also experience some trauma whilst at work. So how can we make sure that as an organisation we are doing all we can to support that? Thank you, Andy. Dawn talked about our people. Dawn talked about all of our good metrics. So the health, well-being and experience of staff is absolutely key for us. And this was a priority that was co-produced with our colleagues. We've got this reflected in our staff survey, but we do have a very well regarded approach to staff well-being, how we can intervene earlier when a colleague is having a difficult time, and also all of the different support structures that are in place day to day to support people to remain in work and to be well at work with either a physical or a mental health or a neurodevelopmental aspect of their life. And there's that Real Talk with Real People podcast, which has been a key part of that conversation. Andy. We've talked about quality improvement. Clearly our ambition is that is the whole concept of continuous improvement. There's that absolute ambition that as an organisation we are keen to learn, as an organisation we are keen to be better and to be the best that we can be with regards to the service that we offer, but also in how we support, develop and retain people in our employment. There's a whole narrative across the organisation that quality improvement is everybody's business. It's not just for people who've been on a clever course. People who are coming into our organisation will have some really good ideas. All of this is going to be key. We've got a range of tools in the organisation for people to access and to use to make sure that we're using an evidence-based model as part of our approach. And we've got the 5 pillars of NHS impact to make sure that we are absolutely focused on the impact that we want to achieve. Quality is a top priority. We've heard several times about the very challenging times that we are in, and Adrian will talk about the financial position that we're in nationally, and I guess there's a really clear message. Dawn talked about not compromising on safety, and there's a real clear message that quality maintains absolutely at the forefront of what we want to achieve. We've got some metrics here that give indicators of that quality. We've got our friends and family test. So this is when people who are in our care, would they recommend our services to their friends and family? And you can see that real strong performance all the way through for our community physical health service, for our mental health service, and you can see that improvement all the way down, including at a trust-wide aspect. Now, Marie showed the triangle of care video earlier, and that's been mentioned as well in other presentations. That's a key part of our approach. You saw Jill on the video. She absolutely campaigns for that, along with a team of people who support that. This is helping to make sure that carers feel part of the care team at every step, recognising the expertise that they bring. And then the culture of care standards, just to reaffirm our absolute focus on improving the experience and the outcomes of people who are in our mental health inpatient wards. So my last slide before we come to the video is some of our other metrics. So we've got 92% of people experience the first episode of psychosis were treated within 2 weeks of referral. Now that is absolutely key. All the evidence is that the sooner that a young person or not always a younger person with a first episode of psychosis, the sooner they have access to a range of evidence-based activities, the better their outcomes will be longer term. It makes a huge difference. So it's really impressive as to how quickly we respond in our very well regarded early intervention and psychosis teams. The percentage of people readmitted within 28 days. So this is a low percentage and we want it to be as low as possible. This indicates how confident we were and how well planned we were at the point of discharging somebody, that everything was in place to prepare that person for that discharge to go well and for them to have the resources at their disposal to stay at home and to be well. We've got that high metric, which again is what we want, of people who require an inpatient bed, and there's that beautiful phrase of gate kept. Now just to explain what that happens, that means that we make sure that we don't just automatically admit somebody who we are concerned about, that we explore all options of community support that can be provided for that person to make sure from a least restrictive point of view, so adhering to all of our responsibilities within that code of practice, that we are supporting people in the least restrictive way as possible, and supporting people a person to stay at home is the least restrictive thing that we can do. We've also got talking therapy service, and clearly we want people to access these services quickly. These are for people with more mild to moderate mental health presentations usually, but again the outcomes are much better if people access them quickly. So you can see that really strong performance about that access within those 6 weeks. We've got that that strong performance of less than 18 weeks. That's about the treatment. And then this percentage of service users who move to recovery, so who are presenting with a defined challenge at the beginning of their journey that would no longer be identified as that challenge at the end of their journey. So the video that you're about to see is our urgent and community response team in Barnsley Community Physical Health Services. So to give an indicator of why this is important, this is a 24 hours a day service. They aim to attend to someone within their normal place of residence. So that could be at home, it could be in a care home, potentially reducing the need for a step up of their care. So this team will be having a huge impact on that person and their loved ones' confidence to stay at home. It will also be having a huge impact on our acute trust partners and ambulance waits, given that we will do our best to keep that person there. It's timely. The team achieve a 2-hour response time in over 90% of cases. And if I was in a physical health crisis, that would give me loads of assurance. And that achieves their target of 75%. So it's a real focus to that supporting people at home. I hope you enjoy the video, and thank you.
Our urgent community response team is a pathway that provides a 2-hour response to somebody who's developed a crisis at home, particularly end-of-life patients that are deteriorating, may need some symptom management, or it could be a catheter-type patient who's in pain.
Urgent Community Response Team covers the whole Barnsley Borough Council area. We're a 24-hour service covering 7 days a week. We get tasks sent through and then we can work it out among the team who's in best geographical position or got skill mix that's required for that visit.
The main aim of our game is to prevent people from escalating and requiring hospital care by responding to them quickly, then doing some proactive work with them. All national drivers for the last 10-15 years have talked about care close to home, right person, right time. That's exactly what we're delivering.
Well, I think over the years we've also developed a really good working relationship within the team, supportive of one another. We've tried to go extra mile to support people that we're there to help while doing it safely.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Adrian Snart. I'm Director of Finance and Resources. Hopefully I'm not going to bring the mood down, but it's time to share some numbers. So I'll talk a little bit about the process we go through at year end, and then we'll start to talk about some of the financial performance. And in all seriousness, some of the stuff that Mark said earlier, our financial performance is strong. It is challenging, but we've done what we set out to do, and I hope we can demonstrate that in the next couple of slides. So each year we go through the accounts process. The finance team prepare a set of accounts, and what we first do is we present those as draft accounts. So before any scrutiny, they are handed over to the auditors. We share them with the audit committee, and we share them with our regulators, with NHS England. And then what happens after that is that there's scrutiny at different levels on those accounts. So we utilise internal audit. So internal audit is the team that we control, if you like. We agree the plan with them. We agree a plan of where the focus will be, and they test and scrutinise what we do, and they tell us whether they are assured by what they've seen in terms of our control environment and our governance processes and procedures. And at the end of every year, they produce what's called a head of internal audit opinion. And again, for this accounting period, they've said it's significant assurance. That's really positive. There is nothing of significance that they are flagging to the organisation or to the audit committee in terms of weaknesses across our systems. We also have significant scrutiny from what we call external audit. Now, external audit, as the name suggests, are kind of out with the organisation. They are independent. They set the plan. They decide where they want to focus. And they have a good degree of independence in that scrutiny. They do use particular language, as auditors are prone to do, but you can see that good assurance, that is good. An unmodified opinion, that basically just means that they've scrutinised the accounts and they haven't identified anything where they would recommend that we should change our accounting position. So that is a positive. That's always what we strive for. There is a point of process that external audit should be able to present their report to Members' Council, and we did that yesterday in advance of today. So I present the accounts to the Members' Council. Then external audit present their report, and members have an opportunity to ask us both questions on what they've heard, whether there's anything of concern to them. And we had a good session yesterday. We got a good few questions from members, so hopefully they left that session assured. I know some members are here again today. If they've reflected overnight, they might have some more questions at the end. We don't know. And then we go through our internal review process, so predominantly through the audit committee. So we've got Mike here as the audit committee chair, who has a background in accountancy, so understands what he's looking at, understands how to read a set of accounts. And again, that audit committee will ask me and the finance team how we constructed. Is there anything that we want to draw to their attention? Is there anything that they want to query? And ultimately, when the audit committee is satisfied, we then take it through trust board governance. And we do all of that by the end of June, so that we can again submit the final audited version to our regulators, to NHS England, and we did all of that within the required timeline. So what is it telling us in these accounts? I think as we go through these slides, there'll be a few references to Cheswold Park Hospital. As Mark indicated at the beginning, we transacted that acquisition of Cheswold Park Hospital at the midpoint in the year. From an accounting point of view, there was a level of complexity attached to it. And one of the things that we always do through the accounts process is, what did we do? What did it look like the year before, 23-24, and what does it look like in 24-25? What's different? And what is different for us in that year was Cheswold being purchased. So I'll try and explain that as we go through. I'm not going to get into the detailed complexity. I just think it's just safe to say there is a level of complexity to it. So the very headline level, income and expenditure. How much did we get coming into the organisation and how much did we expend? And you can see from 23-24 we delivered a small surplus, but if you look at it on this particular table here, it seems to suggest that we had a large deficit in 24-25. That's the first bit of the Cheswold complexity. When we make such an acquisition, we have to reassess it after we've made the acquisition, and we have to decide whether the value on our balance sheet is as it should be. And if it isn't, we do something called an impairment, which means you write down that value, which is what we did. So our regulators, in effect, are concerned about our financial position, the line above, if you like, and I'll explain that on the next slide. So although we have a technical deficit because of an impairment, it's not part of our regulatory framework. It is just a one-off part of the Cheswold transaction. I can talk for hours about Cheswold accounting if anyone wants to catch me afterwards. So this is probably a bit more what it looks like in terms of our IPR that we present to the board each month. What's our ongoing trading position? What's the actual financial position that we should be concerned about and that our regulators should be concerned about? So we all have an obligation in the NHS to break even as a minimum or deliver a level of surplus for reinvestment, but break-even function is the absolute minimum that we must strive for. So in 23-24, we delivered about a £500,000 surplus, which is great. You know, we're the right side of balance, and we're fully utilising the funds that are available to us, but we've got a little bit of financial headroom. For 24-25, we set a plan of break-even, get bang onto zero, and actually we exceeded that by £200,000. You know, we're a £430 million organisation. That's about as close as it gets. So that is a good result for us. We did what was expected of us. We delivered the plan, and we delivered just slightly better than break even. We do, through the board, look at some very key finance metrics, both because we are interested in them, but also because there's external expectations about how you should manage some of these. Agency is something that gets a lot of airtime. We know we have a reliance on agency staff to make sure that we can keep our services safe, but we also know that it comes at a premium cost, so we need to try and minimise that. And you can see there again, we set a plan for 24-25 that was broadly the same as the year before, but actually we were able to reduce expenditure on agency. So we assess ourselves as green on that. That's positive. We've reduced it. And if anybody looks at 25-26 performance, you'll see that that trend has continued to go down, so we're reducing our reliance. We've assessed ourselves as amber on cash. I think this just needs to be in context. we assessed it as amber because we weren't near to the plan that we set ourselves. So we thought we'd have about 65 million of cash at the end of the year, and we had nearly 10 million less than that. 5 million we utilised for Cheswell Park acquisition, which we didn't know about when we set the plan in the April before. And the other £500,000 is funds that are owed to us that we didn't collect at the point we closed the accounts off. So that's why we assess ourselves as amber. The reason why it just needs a bit of context is to have that level of cash in an NHS trust is really, really strong. So our cash holding is really, really positive. But we know that we just need to tighten up a little bit on our cash planning to make sure that we have the level we said we would have. In capital expenditure, again, we've assessed ourselves as green, but you'll spot there that we spent more than plan. And we spent more than plan because the NHS way is quite often new funds become available during the year. We can bid for things, and we successfully bid for things, and I'll explain that in a little while. So we spent more than plan, but it was still a positive because we had additional NHS England funds to spend more than plan. Thanks, Andy. So just to drill into the income a little bit more. So it's gone up by £35 million. Why has it gone up? Well, Cheswold again. We got a bit of support from NHS England to support us with that transition from Cheswold being in the independent sector to bringing it into the NHS. By far the biggest is the income uplift that we get from our main commissioners, and that happens every year. There's national formula to determine what those uplifts should be. By far the biggest factor is the additional funding we receive for pay awards, which is positive, but it's also a cause of financial stress for us. So the income uplifts we are getting for the pay award are not keeping pace with the actual cost of the pay award. So that's something that we're very mindful of and something we're very focused on from an expenditure point of view. And there's factors in there for cost inflation as well. So particularly on our non-pay budgets, you know, the utility bills go up each year, as you'll experience at home. We get uplifts to cover that within the trust as well. And we are still getting new investment from the Mental Health Investment Standard, but not as much as we used to get. So part of the reason for that is commissioners might decide that they want to invest in other areas. It might be with the voluntary sector. They might have focus in other areas. They are not obligated to make the Mental Health Investment Standard come to us as a mental health trust. They have to invest in a key range of mental health key indicators, which they continue to do. So all our commissioners hit the targets. It's just the funds flow to us is slightly different. And I think what was noticeable in this period is most of the Mental Health Investment Standard was funding the full-year impact of things that have been started in earlier years. So we only get funded when we deliver. And usually to deliver, we have to recruit staff. So, as Mark said earlier, we've been very successful in recruitment. We've got these new schemes off the ground. Therefore, we get the funds flow to support that through income. So where do we spend the money? Well, most of it goes on pay, which shouldn't be a surprise to you. You can see a pretty big increase between years on pay. So as I said, some of that is the pay award. Bigger the pay award, bigger the pay bill goes up. But also there's Cheswold again. There's another switch between non-pay and pay. So before the acquisition, we were buying services from Cheswell Park Hospital as an independent sector provider. When it switched over, all the staff came into the trust, so they all got added to our pay bill. So we didn't spend more, we just classify it differently because we are paying people instead of paying somebody else to deliver that service. And that's the same explanation as to why non-pay's gone down. So non-pay will usually go up incrementally in line with inflation. Most of our non-pay budgets are index linked to some kind of inflation indicator. But because we switched Cheswell Pay out of healthcare purchase to direct healthcare provision, we've moved it between the lines. Depreciation, it's technical, but basically that's the cost of holding the assets that we have. So all our buildings have an accounting charge applied to them. It's usually fairly consistent. Will go up again because we've now got another building, another hospital in Cheswold. But that is something that is well controlled. And then again, you can see that net impairments, which again is the impact of that acquisition that we made mid-year. So we said earlier about 80% of our expenditures are on pay. By far the vast majority is permanent substantive staff across the organisation, the 5,000 and odd staff that we have on the payroll. We do utilise bank, and we do utilise bank quite extensively in some teams. It's an area of focus for us, but we do have control, and we do recognise that that temporary workforce is very valuable for us to flex our services where needed. And as I've mentioned earlier, keen focus on agency and trying to drive down some of that that agency utilisation, so we can avoid that premium rate staff, if you like. So we've got that reasonably well under control. Good plans going through 25-26 to reduce that further. And non-pay. So slight anomaly at the top there. Estates has gone down by a couple of million. The reason for that is in the 23-24 accounting period, we hosted a pot of money to support our commissioners with mental health school teams, and there was some associated estates costs with that. So that was a one-off in 23-24 that wasn't repeated in 24-25, hence the drop. Everything else you can see there is reasonably static, again with the exception of healthcare provision, which is that switch over from Cheswell that I described earlier. So we spend a lot of time focused on non-pay. There is elements of controllable expenditure within the non-pay, but actually we need to make sure that it's that kind of 80-20 rule. What we need to maintain our focus on is the cost of our staff, but we shouldn't lose sight of the cost of the infrastructure that supports the running of the organisation. And just a little bit about capital. So can't get away from it. I'm going to mention it again. Cheswell Park Hospital was a significant capital transaction for us. Significantly supported by NHS England, but we did buy that hospital. We do own that hospital now, so that's now part of our capital infrastructure, and it means that in the future we'll build it into our ongoing capital plans to make sure it's properly maintained and kept up to the required standards. There was a few things we knew about at the point of transition where we wanted to just focus a bit of effort to make sure that some of the environment in Cheswell was aligned to what we'd expect in the trust, and we've just been doing that in the first couple of months of the transition. And I mentioned earlier that we've got a good track record of getting discretionary capital bids into the organisation. What seems to be the flavour nationally at the minute is a lot of support for things that are improve sustainability and improve environmental costs. So for this particular period, we had a successful bid approved for LED lighting, and we're putting LED lighting in quite a number of inpatient units as part of that grant funding. We always have a rolling programme in the trust to make sure that we can continue to maintain the high standards. It requires regular focus, but we've got a rolling programme of improvements to seclusion rooms, and we've got a regular door replacement programme. You wouldn't believe how challenging it is for a door replacement programme. It's been running for years, but obviously, we've got a lot of inpatient beds. Every bedroom has a door. All the beds are in use, so we've got to make sure that we've got a capital programme that we can deliver that isn't disruptive to services, which is why it takes us so long. But it's a really, really important piece of work to make sure that the environment is safe and secure. We are getting towards the end of it now, but it's been a major plank of our capital programme for a number of years. And in capital expenditure, we always try and get the balance right between the resources we need for the estate, for the building infrastructure, and what we need for IT investment and that IT infrastructure. So one of the key things that we did in this period was put some investment into the trust scanning bureau. So there's various bits of kit to scan records in. We've had that quite a few years. It was due for replacement, so that was one of the schemes that we put through in this period. I'm not going to talk about IFRS 16. It's another technical accounting aspect, but basically what it means is a lot of what we do ends up on the trust balance sheet, whether we own it or lease it, and it's part of the control environment that we need to live within. So when we talk about a capital allocation, what we tend to focus on is what we actually spend on buildings, on IT. But actually there's a significant level of spend on leasing buildings. So we don't own them, we lease them. and it now gets routed through these capital limits, so we have to track it in the same way. So we did live within our IFRS 16 external limit, we did live within our capital limit, so we did what we needed to do from a capital perspective. So I'll stop on the finances, and I'll just end with a couple of slides on the charity before we have a video. So we have a really active charity, as I'm hoping you're all aware of. They have a level of independence. They are the trust charity, but they can operate independently. They set their priorities. They decide where they will invest. And what we need to be very careful of is that we shouldn't use the charity to top up the funding where we are deficient as a core trust. It has to be additionality. It has to be things that brings additional value into the trust, and I think we do that very, very well. So there's a couple of examples there of schemes that the AUP charity have been involved in. So the 78 projects that went through, benefiting huge numbers of people, but they do work in our inpatient units, as you can see there. They do work supporting allotment initiatives, doing that through Kirklees, and again, always get really positive feedback from patients and carers and staff. So it really does add value to the organisation. There is a finance slide at the bottom there, and you can see the income and expenditure over the years. This is something we need to keep an eye on. So income was 624,000 and expenditure was 1.2 million. So we are, in that period, we spent more than we raised from the charity, but we've got a level of reserve so we can support that, but we can't support that indefinitely. So we just need to make sure that the AUP and the charity's ambitions are matched to the income that we can generate through that charity. Again, got a really good track record with doing some of that, but over the next sort of 2-3 years, we just need to make sure that our ambitions are matching with the fundraising abilities of the charity. Just a little bit more there. So we like to support creativity and health across the trust. We rely quite heavily on our charities to do that. The previous slide focused on AUP. Some of this focuses on creative minds. But there's some really, really good examples there of trust-wide or community-wide or very focused pieces of work that we get involved in through the various different strands of the charity. I'm not going to read them all out, but I think it just demonstrates the breadth of how the charity can touch different parts of the organisation in different ways. And they say, invariably, we always get really positive feedback about the work that they do. So I'm going to finish with a video, which hopefully is a linking a few things together. So it's a piece of work that was supported by AUP. It's about using a digital technology solution. So it goes back to what Dawn was saying about the 10-year government plan to move from analogue to digital. I think this is a really example of how we can use the charity to benefit our patients that aligns with the government 10-year plan, and hopefully we'll be able to showcase more of these as we go into the future. So this is about using an AI tool for children that stammer.
In the Children's Speech and Language Therapy department, we've been using virtual reality to support children and young people who stammer, to empower them to use their voices and better prepare them for real-life talking situations. The headset is worn by the young person, and as the therapist, you're then in control of different talking situations.
So what VR can do is it creates a bridge from the clinic into the real world. It means that people can realise that they are capable of doing things. They can stammer as much as they like and still be the person that they want to be.
We started using therapy with VR with children who were stammering, and we saw what a great impact it was having. So we started using it with other children with speech and language and communication needs, young people and adults as well.
Health West Yorkshire were the first NHS trust to trial the software. They have led the way into this new innovation for so many other trusts, for so many other people who stammer just like myself.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, you've heard from the professionals, so it's time for an amateur now. and barracking is okay. So my name is John Laville. I am publicly elected governor for Kirklees, and I've been lead governor for 5 years. What I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon, some of it has already been covered in terms of where we operate and how we represent the people in our communities, but probably more importantly, what governors actually do and what contribution they make to the trust. So, as I say, you've seen this slide before, you've not seen it with the numbers on, so that's the population, and if you add those up, Adrian can do his mental arithmetic now to make sure that my 1.25 million people isn't a million miles off. So the trust, the population that the trust serves is more than 1.25 million, because we also have some services outside that geography. If you drove from the furthest point west to the furthest point east, you'd do more than 50 miles. So it's a big area. It's an area of 556 square miles. And we have 34 governors representing that area. So they've a big job to do. If we move on to the next slide, we know we're a membership organisation. Again, you can see the numbers there. I'm not going to read them out. But our public membership has fallen a little bit. It's gone down 2%. Our staff membership, on the other hand, has gone up 8%. So overall, we've gone up 2%. So our membership is actually growing a touch. Participation in elections is pretty rubbish. I said that last year. And I'll say it again, 3.3% of our members bother to vote. However, I think that is fairly reflective of the culture of the country at the moment. But anyway, we need to do better. We now do publish a quarterly newsletter to our members who are online. So that hopefully encourages more participation. We produced a video last year. We're not going to show it this year because I'm not that photogenic, so we're not going to show it again. But that's on our trust website. So we're doing what we can in terms of our membership. So it is growing slightly, but our participation ain't great. So moving on, again, those who are time-honoured attendees at these meetings will have seen this slide before. I remember the first annual meeting I attended, which is 6 years ago. We were using this slide, and in true sustainability fashion, we're still using it because it just gives the picture. So we have 3 different categories of governors. We have public governors who are elected by our membership, we have appointed governors, and we have staff governors. So in terms of our elected governors, we have a total of 18. That's 3 for Barnsley, 3 for Calderdale, 5 for Wakefield, and 6 for Kirklees, and 1 for the rest of Yorkshire and neighbouring counties. The number of governors per area is based on the population of that area. In terms of appointed governors, these are from our partners. So we've heard a lot about our partners so far this afternoon. So we have 9 appointed governors, 1 from the University of Huddersfield, 3 from our acute trusts. So that's Barnsley Hospital, Calderdale and Huddersfield Trust, and Mid Yorks. We have an appointed governor from each of the council areas, so Kirklees, Calderdale, Barnsley and Wakefield, and 1 staff side governor. So that makes up the 9 appointed governors. And then the final category, well, not final in terms of importance, but the one that's the furthest away from me on the slide are staff governors. So basically we have a staff governor for each of the service lines. within the trust, so nursing support, AHPs, etc. And it's ever changing because all our governors are volunteers, even if they're staff. Well, some of our appointed governors may say that they're not quite volunteers, but that's another story. That's up to them. But we are all volunteers. So circumstances change. In April this year, we had 33 out of 34 governors, which is pretty good. We've now got 31. One of our staff governors has decided to stand down. One of our public governors has had a bereavement and again has stood down. However, 31 out of 34 historically is a good representation. So we've seen where we come from. We've seen our geography. We've seen how many. But what do they do? What do these governors actually do? Well, one of the things which statutorily we have got to do is hold the non-exec directors to account for the performance of the board. We are a membership organisation. We are a foundation trust. So actually the members, it is the members who are in control, and they do that through the governors. And obviously, the people who do the day-to-day work are the executives and everybody within the trust. And the non-execs make sure the execs are doing what they should do, and the execs do their job. So our role is to just watch what the non-execs do and make sure that they are doing their job. And how do we do that? Well, we do that through observation. So a few years ago, we didn't have the opportunity to observe as much as we do now. And that's thanks to Mark and Marie, who have opened the trust up to governors in a number of ways. So we have 4 members' council meetings a year. The non-exec directors attend those and present some of the information. We have 8 public board meetings a year. So again, the non-exec directors are there and we can observe their performance. Introduced through COVID was question and answer sessions, and we have kept those going, and we've now refined those down. So there are the chair of the board committees, which are all non-exec directors, and the exec lead. It gives the governors the opportunity to ask specific questions regarding that board committee. So, for example, we can ask questions of the Finance and Investment Committee. We can ask questions of the Quality and Safety Committee. So we can ask questions of those board committees. And it is really insightful to observe those board committees. So that's something else that we couldn't do 4 years ago, but we can now, and that is observe board committee meetings. So not only can we question the chair of that committee or any specific committee, we can also observe the board committee, which is really where a lot of the work goes on. And finally, we have an engagement team, and again, we have that non-exec presence on that engagement team. So really, we observe the non-exec directors. We watch them in their work, which, as I say, when I first became a governor, we couldn't do hardly any of that. And what if I'm observing, what do I observe, or what do I look for? I look to see if the non-exec director is putting in the appropriate challenge. I hope you're all listening, non-exec directors. Putting in the appropriate challenge. Are they adding value to the discussions, and are they making sure that we get smart actions coming out of the meetings? And at subsequent meetings, are they making sure that those smart actions have actually been done? So that is how we observe the non-exec directors in their role. And if there are any things to feedback, which is very, very rare, but if in our trust, but if there are, then we have a mechanism of feeding that back to the chair. So that's one of the role of governors. So how do governors get involved? Well, we've talked about the progress we've made in the last 5 years. So governor involvement and influence has really increased considerably over that time. So we've now got much more opportunities to exercise our scrutiny. We've got much more opportunity to feedback from our communities. Dawn has already talked about sort of the engagement that we've had with our communities in terms of the strategy development and the transformation of older people's services, and governors were very heavily involved in those initiatives. As I say, the governors have more voice, and they work, I was going to say tirelessly, they will work very hard within their communities to know what's going on. So some of our governors are volunteers for Health Watch. Bob Morse, wherever he is, Bob's a volunteer for Health Watch, and other governors similarly. We've got governors who are involved in carers groups, governors who are involved in faith settings, governors who are involved in other NHS bodies. Primary care would be a very good example there. Lots of community groups, governors who are involved with veterans, governors who are involved with asylum seekers. So hopefully I'm painting a picture that you can say our governors have got their sort of ears to the ground right across the piece. Always remembering that governors are volunteers and they have lives to lead like anyone else. So we've talked about our non-exec directors. So how do we try and ensure that our non-exec directors bring that knowledge of their neighbourhoods to the trust and that insight? Well, the governors actually form the nominations committee. So all the appointments for non-exec directors go through the nominations committee. And their governors will scrutinise the applications. Yes, we have colleagues from the trust as well on that committee, but primarily it's governor focused. So we scrutinise the applications. Governors are involved in the interview process, involved in stakeholder groups, and finally make their recommendation to the Members' Council in terms of who we think should be appointed for each particular role. But how do we know that they have the finger on the pulse in the community? So here is the mugshots of the last 5 appointees. Now, I did think, it doesn't look like it here, but when I saw the copy that came to me when I was doing my prep, I thought that Margaret had got a Huddersfield Town shirt on. Now, it don't look like that here because the other photo were cropped. But anyway, she doesn't have. But Andy bet me that I didn't say that. So there we go. Huddersfield Town is my team, if anybody should doubt that, and Emma's as well. Marie's already talked about the non-execs, but I'll just do one-liners on them. So Gary was Chief Executive of the Coalfields Regeneration Trust for 25 years. And obviously, we are in what were the coalfields. So does Gary have an intimate knowledge of the patch? Yes, I think so. As well as that, Gary was also a non-exec director for Mid Yorkshire Hospitals. Margaret was chief nurse for Yorkshire and Humber. So Senna Moore in terms of her knowledge of NHS and Yorkshire. Martin, as Marie said, has come from, Martin sat there wondering what I'm going to say. Martin has come from industry, but brought great skills. And I was really impressed during his interview process, his understanding of our geography and understanding of the challenges in our area, which said to me, yes, he knows our area. Rakaya, as again Marie said, working with Together Women for, she tells me, more than 20 years. I can't really believe it, but Together Women support women and young girls in the north of England, and particularly those who are vulnerable to fall in foul of the criminal justice system. And Mitch, I've not had the pleasure of meeting yet, but Professor Mitch Waterman is head of psychology at Leeds University and has done lots of research and development in Yorkshire. So I think in terms of do they know their neighbourhood, I think you would agree with me that the answer is yes. So we've looked at how governors represent their community. We've looked at how we ensure that the non-exec directors know their neighbourhoods. Well, let's look at another important aspect of the governor role, which is how governors influence the quality within our organisation. So, I've talked about how governors are an integral part of the community. What we have are virtual governor meetings by area. So we'd have a governor meeting for Wakefield governors, another for Barnsley governors, etc. And in those very informal virtual meetings, we talk about issues within the area. Now, there might be one-off issues that can be resolved, or there might be trends. And if we see trends across the piece, then we would highlight that, we would raise that at our members' council, and we would look for the trust to take action in that area. And if we didn't, then we would follow up until we did see some action. Governors are very heavily involved in the quality and oversight and quality monitoring. Governors play an integral role in quality walkarounds. Now, quality walkarounds are something that we've introduced in the last 18 months. And I must say, I was quite sceptical when, firstly, we talked about quality walkarounds, because my background is in the food industry, and I have been had many inspections, and I was an inspection man. So what are these quality walkarounds? But actually, you don't walk around very much. What you do is sit and talk to service users, and sit and talk to staff, and understand their journey, whether it's staff, whether it's service users. Understand how they feel in an inpatient unit, for example. Understand the difficulties that some of the staff have, because you get one service user saying, Dr. So-and-so is wonderful, and you get another saying he's not. And that must be very difficult for our staff. So you really get a very good insight of the patient, and some of the stories are quite heartrending, and there's one or two that sort of just feature with me time after time. And I remember doing a quality walk around with Mike Ford in North Kirklees Core, and I actually talked to staff. And again, one of the stories was, I live to the side of Bradford. It takes me an hour and a quarter to get here, and the traffic is horrendous and getting worse. So I drive past probably 20 places that I could work if I applied. Why do you come then? Because of the team. Because of my colleagues. We've got a fantastic team. And you don't get that in an inspection. You get that by actually sitting and talking to people. So, quality walkarounds, governors absolutely fully involved. We do have a rapid escalation procedure if we have specific issues that need to come to the fore. So, moving on, what else do we do in terms of quality? Well as our quality walkarounds, governors are involved in an NHS-wide procedure, which is patient-led. I do know it, but I will look. Patient-led assessment of the care environment, which is a bit of an inspection. And they go on at this time of the year. And as we've already seen, we scored 100% for cleanliness in terms of our place visits. So governors are heavily involved in that. We also have a Members' Council quality group, which is chaired by Phil Shire. Phil's not here today, might be watching. Phil does an absolutely super job there together with Daryl. What do we do there? We look at the quality accounts. We look at the quality data. We follow or we look at CQC reports, Quality Care Quality Commission reports and action plans, and just keep an eye to make sure they're all going ahead timely. We look at the integrated performance report, and it's 700 odd data points. And we do scrutinise those quite heavily, and we do ask some awkward questions now and again, don't we, Daryl?
Just to also mention, John, I've had a message off Margaret. She's watching you and heard you comment about her outfit.
Did she? But she doesn't support Huddersfield Town. Right, okay. Well, Margaret's great, so I know she won't take offence. No. So finally, what the quality group does, and again, this is Phil and Daryl's leadership, we actually get out into services. So our last quality Members' Council quality group was at Many Gates in Wakefield, where we were hearing from the team about the work that they do with autism and ADHD. We had one quality group at Cheswold Park. I remember one which was really good in Wakefield with the eating disorder team. So that enables the governors to actually get out and understand what some of the services do. Sorry, I'm going a bit dry. So I'm nearly at the end. So we've looked at how we hold looked at how we hold non-exec directors to the account, how we influence and involve, how we ensure that our NEDs know their neighbourhoods, and how we help in terms of our quality. And finally, and Andy's got there before me, our objectives. So these are objectives for 23 to 25. Yes, we want more members. Well, 2% more is not great, but we're working. Oh, the colour coding, green is good. Amber is, yes, we're making progress, but we're not as quite where we want to be. So we want more members. Well, 2% increase is more, but it's not brilliant. Know Your Governor, that we're doing that through the newsletter and focusing on a particular governor per newsletter. Young People's Forums, I think we're doing quite well there. So we were going to set up our own forum, but we decided to tap into existing forums in our area, and our teams have had some great successes at some of the events. I remember when Marie and I went to in just after Easter and it was amazing how many young people came to that event, and most of them were at school and college, so they came in the holiday time, and it was a really good day. In terms of health inequalities, we're always doing our best to highlight health inequalities, and the triangle of care we've talked about a number of times. In terms of quality, we've improved the transparency, we've improved the training, we've talked about place, and one thing that we did set as a goal was to get better links with governors in the integrated care system. We've not done as well there as we would have liked because of mainly the sort of current climate in terms of how the ICS is changing. In terms of effectiveness, we're doing pretty good. We're holding the non-execs to account when it's necessary. We're observing board committees. We've got a very good governor induction programme, and our staff governors who have got a difficult job because they may be based here in Wakefield, but their cohort is working in Calderdale or Barnsley or Kirklees. So those are quietly away, one way or another, setting up their own informal networks so they understand the challenges of a colleague working in the Dales unit, even if they actually are based here or based in Barnsley or whatever. So in terms of our objectives, it's, I think, a fairly good performance. I'm quite pleased with it. Job now is to set the objectives 26 to 29. Isn't that scary? It's scary for me. 29. I can still remember what I was doing on Millennium Evening, which was quite okay. A bit odd, but it was quite okay. And 2029, yeah, brings you back to reality a bit. So finally, nearly finally, are we proud of our achievements? Yes, absolutely we are. Are we proud of our trust? Yeah, yeah. Proud to serve our members and proud of our future plans. So in terms of thank you, the next slide says thank you. Andy? Oh, it doesn't. There we go, a technical hitch. Anyway, assume it does say thank you. So, I'm thanking you for not throwing anything and for bearing with me. But I'd really like to thank our governors for the time, effort and dedication that they put in. They are all volunteers, and some of them do astounding they all do astounding work. So thank you to them for their dedication. Thank you to the board for your support and a listening ear when we have something to say. And thank you to all the staff who work tirelessly to support the people that we serve. So they do a wonderful job, and it's great to be part of this amazing organisation. So thank you. Oh, we've now got a video, if it works, Andy. You see, it had to not work on the amateurs bit, didn't it?
Calderdale Green Team has very recently started. Together, our aim is to make our trust more sustainable, our buildings more sustainable, and reduce our carbon footprint. We've managed to have radiator valves put on so we can turn off the radiators when we don't need them on. We are looking now at if we can have an audit done on some of the other buildings to have light sensors put in. At Laura Mitchell, we've got solar panels on our roof. We're looking at how we can be greener in different environments, like trying to get electric car charger points at some of the buildings to try and use greener energy. Sustainability feels like a really important thing to all of us. We can do something here in each of our buildings and make small steps to manage the recycling better, we can manage the energy consumption better. And that means that generally we're reducing the trust carbon footprint.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good afternoon all. Thank you, John. What a fantastic presentation. It's a hard one to follow after that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm SWYPFT, consultant psychiatrist, chief medical officer. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce my partner in crime here, Professor Mitch.
Do you want me to introduce myself? Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Mitch Waterman. I'm the designate non-executive director representing University of Leeds. I'm the head of the School of Psychology at the University of Leeds. My professorial titles in forensic psychological science, but I'm not a forensic psychologist. I've had lots of contact over the years with your fantastic trust. Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. So we're going to do a double act, as you've just realized. So we'll try and keep this quick. We realize it's the last presentation of the day, but what a privilege, and so proud and absolutely delighted to be able to talk today on the fact that it's a momentous occasion for our trust. We're launching our teaching trust status. A huge thank you to each and every one of you, and those who are not in the room but are perhaps listening, and our teams are spread out right across the trust who made this possible. So very quickly, in terms of our journey, we started in February 2023. I think it might have been this room actually, when we presented to our governors, our members council, and said they absolutely have the ambition, we want to be a teaching trust, and why we want to do that. Because it reflects our already significant commitment and work to what we do day in and day out, perhaps not even realizing that we're doing that, in terms of our training, our research work, our commitment and our relationship with higher education institutes right across the country, and most importantly, in our footprint and in our region. So we established a steering group with, again, members right across different aspects. I can see a number of them here, and who made this possible. We worked through this over the last 18 months, and I think Mark and Marie perhaps referred to this earlier on. It was not easy. It was a robust process, but for all the right reasons, because you cannot simply become a teaching trust. And as Mark said, we are only one of the two in the country. So that suggests that, there is something that we need to aspire and something that we need to work to. And most importantly, it's the start of a journey. So there's a lot more to come. It's not about sitting back and relaxing now. So we had a number of internal engagement sessions, Q&A sessions, because obviously one of the things is, what does it mean and why should we be doing this? Right questions to be asking. So we did that to try and engage and get our colleagues across the trust on board. And also fundamentally it's about building further, as Mitch was just referring to, on already the strong relationship we have with the University of Leeds on a number of counts: teaching, education, work partnerships, honorary roles, etc. And what we do is absolutely aligned to the people strategy, which you will have noticed earlier on. And it's enabling our trust and our staff, the people, our service users and carers, to have that fulfilled life, to be able to be fit for purpose and fit for future. Next slide, please, Andy. So in April 2025, the University of Leeds confirmed that we had been approved. We went through a number of steps within the University of Leeds as well in terms of their faculty, and the trust application was approved. And I won't go through this in detail. I think a number of our exec colleagues have gone through in terms of why it matters in terms of our strategic objectives, our values, and our commitment to deliver the best quality care to our service users and carers. So in terms of what we need to do, and I'm hoping you've all noticed this, so we have a banner there, and you'll see a few more, so you will not miss it. None of you will miss it as you drive into the trust. And again, we're looking for feedback. If you want it to be in a different location or anything, please do share with us. So this is the new name. And again, huge thanks to all of you engaged and really, shared some positive feedback and constructive challenge as well in terms of, what the name could be. Could it reflect the geography more? Could it be a little bit easier, perhaps not long? But we've taken all that on board. We also have to be in keeping with the governance arrangements from NHS England. So the new name is that, South West Yorkshire Partnership Teaching NHS Foundation Trust. I mean, that's not hard at all, is it? And hopefully, we can still refer to ourselves as SWYPFT, so that won't change. So again, really pleased and looking forward to that banner. So thanks again to our teams who've made this happen in rapid time. How will it make a difference? And I think this is the most fundamental important part, is it why is it we're doing, and especially as we've listened this morning in terms of the national context, the focus, there's going to be even more of a challenge in terms of how we hold to our values and what we said we would do, our promises to our people, both people being both staff as well as service users and carers. And as we said before, we are one of the few nationally to be able to do this, which means we really are ambitious about what we want to do for our population, for our communities. We want to be firmly, even more firmly embedded and anchored to all of our 4 places and further wide as well. Because we not only provide mental health services and community services, we provide services for those with learning disability and autism. So it is really the whole pathway, the whole holistic pathway that we care for. And by doing this, and both the commitment from the 2 organizations, from University of Leeds and from ourselves, it demonstrates that absolute collective commitment for parity of esteem. And I'm sure we've heard this with time and again, do we get forgotten? Do some of our vulnerable populations get forgotten? And this puts it firmly on the map to say, we are an absolutely important organization and we deliver some incredibly important services to our community. And what this means, and I've already seen that, and I know some of our non-exec directors who supported me in the consultant interviews have seen, we already have candidates, just met 2 more yesterday, who are saying that they absolutely value what we do in the organization with regards to looking after our people, both service users, our staff. And we are ambitious for our staff. They're valued, their voice counts. And those are the reasons why they want to move into our organization. I mean, I'm not going to stop anyone moving into our organization. It helps strengthen our clinical workforce because we know that, if you look at our staff survey results, that speaks volumes. We know that from evidence that happy workforce, happy staff means happy patients, better quality care, high quality care. And as a learning organization, it means that we are not looking to blame, we're looking to learn. Continuous learning is our focus. And being open and transparent when things go wrong, because we do work in a place where things can go wrong, there's human factors, and being open about it and being transparent about it are not defensive. So all of that matters, giving that kind of importance of learning and evidence-based care. It stimulates further opportunities. I know Mitch was going to talk about that very soon. It means that it opens up doors that weren't there before. It potentially opens up new workforce to come and spend time with us. For instance, we're looking to see whether we can have dental students. Why aren't dental students here in a mental health unit? We know that, mental health patients with mental health problems, comorbidities are significantly high. We know that those with learning disabilities die 20 years earlier, yet we don't have appropriate access to dental care. So we should be exposing in the right way our future students, the future generation are going to look after all of us into that. So we've been having those conversations about how do we do that, how do we stimulate. So practical, pragmatic research, that makes a difference, not something perhaps that we do want to do that as well, but we also want to have a quick and direct impact on our place. So that will really help us in terms of improving our retention, improving our recruitment for the right reasons. People want to stay here because they feel it's psychologically safe. They feel that their needs are met. So it improves the visibility of the organisation. And as I said, we've already started to see that. I'll hand over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Shubha. This is the start of a journey, really. And I would never want, I'm sure my colleagues in the Faculty of Medicine and Health and even at higher levels, the Vice-Chancellor at the university would never want you to imagine that, in a sense, this is something that we award. This is because we wanted to work with you, I think, just as much as potentially you wanted to work with us. And the reason that I frame it very much as the start of a journey is that the beginning of that journey is to learn a little bit more about what each of us is currently doing, each of us would like to do, and also to think, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could? But that might take 5, 10, 15 years. We have established teaching trust relationships with a number of trusts, as you might imagine. Leeds is the second largest university in the country and only just the second largest. But SWYPFT is special. There is a true reality to that. Mark has pointed it out, Shubha's pointed it out, John's pointed it out in many respects. And there are things that we could do together that Leeds probably can't do alone or with its existing trust partners, and we would like to think that you would like to do some of those things with us. So I'll talk very briefly just about a few. The point I would make, the overarching point I would make, is that right now, just a couple of months in reality, and I'm still not fit and proper enough to be a non-executive director yet. I might be proper, I'm certainly not fit. It's about fact-finding. It's about what do you want, what could we do, what would be great for the future. Shuba's already talked about a really good example. You know, why don't dental students spend some time here and understand what it's like to work with the sorts of patients that you work with? So part of our agenda, and we would hope part of yours, and obviously money flows from this. This isn't like we're asking you to give us a gift. Is to expand and diversify learning opportunities. Across the Faculty of Medicine and Health, we teach virtually, by no means all, but we teach very, very many healthcare practitioners, doctors, dentists, nurses, radiologists, psychologists. Some of them come here already. The clinical psychologists typically for forensic placements here. But there's scope for more, and because we don't know the entirety of what you do, and you don't know the entirety of what we do, part of the initial journey is a bit of scoping and just spending some time understanding each other. That may lead to new opportunities, and those new opportunities themselves might mean new programs of study. Leeds is an expanding university. You've all heard about the difficulties of university recruitment in a climate where society and to an extent political parties are becoming more and more focused on pressures regarding immigration, for example. The university has to find ways of surviving, and part of that is through changing, diversifying and expanding. We'd love to provide learning opportunities for trust staff. I've discussed one possibility already with Shuba and with Marie, but there will be others. And some of that might just be a function of working with us. And we would learn from you. That's what the final point really is on this particular slide, about us gaining a better understanding of what it's like to provide mental health, social care, healthcare provision more broadly across the diversity of your geographical spread, where we don't have quite that insight from anyone else that we work with quite so closely. And who knows, in the future, some sort of university footprint. Here, Learning Centre, Trust University Learning Centre. We have things like that elsewhere. Here could be special. Next slide, please, Andy. It's worth noting too that I had great discussion with Wajid earlier about your current research activity. University of Leeds is an institution, Russell Group. It is obliged to conduct research and it is obliged to teach. Those are its two principal missions. Our research endeavour runs to many tens of millions of pounds. We would love to work with some of you, looking at some of the existing research projects that you currently have running. They overlap with lots of what we do. And there are opportunities there. There are opportunities for us to learn from what you've found, from you to learn from what we're finding. We have massive methodological expertise. We have world-leading groups in certain research areas. And part of this, in terms of potential benefits for the trust, is what do you need? What would be useful? And that too is part of the scoping exercise we need to do. Build new research, strategic research collaborations between the trust and the university. And you already rely quite a lot on National Institute of Health Research funding. The coordinating centre for the NIHR, for the clinical network, is within the Faculty of Medicine and Health. You're not really going to find anyone with stronger links with the NIHR than us. Now, that doesn't mean that it's go knock on the door and can we have some money, nice though that would be. But it does mean we have quite a lot of NIHR program grants, research for patient benefit grants, so we have good links. I'll say a couple of things more and then I'll hand back to Shuba. The scope for innovation, and I don't mean to imply in this slide really that leading academics necessarily know best, because the reality is that even though we have lots of clinical academics, we have many more academics who are not clinical, they're not practitioners, and they can learn from what's happening in practice, but they might also be able to ask the question, why do you do it that way? So there might be some scope for innovations in practice, and also some scope for some additional evaluation of what you're currently doing. We have extensive evaluation expertise and experience, not just within the Faculty of Medicine and Health, but elsewhere within the university too. Some of that we could certainly call on to extend, in a sense, the trust's reach within the university. So it's a privilege to be with you. This is possibly going to be the best part of being head of psychology at the University of Leeds, but Shuba.
Oh, thank you so much, Mitch. Really kind words, and absolutely delighted, as you can see, what we can do. So very, very, very quickly, I think we've covered between us, in terms of what the system level benefits are. Just wanted to reiterate that, because what one organization can do is going to be amplified almost logarithmically when we have two organizations, who are this committed and who are committed to the population that we serve. So, absolutely excited about what the journey is going to bring us. It's going to boost morale, and I think we've touched upon that, a number of us today in our, when times are tough, we absolutely need to make sure that we don't lose that focus on why we are here. The purpose of our being as an organization is to do the best for our service users, carers, and our staff, and we mustn't forget that. And I think this is a great platform for us, enabling us to hold that, whilst I know Adrian will say, yes, do not forget what I've said this afternoon. So whilst living within our means, whilst doing the best, and whilst utilizing the strategic objectives to keep us on the straight and narrow. So again, from a public health perspective, so more and more we have to work wider population basis, not as an individual. So I'm hoping that what you've heard so far kind of brings all that together, and you'll join us in that journey and support us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I hope it's been a very informative, insightful afternoon. Thank you for all those here today and indeed online listening to this. What I would say is, as chair of this organisation, I couldn't be more proud of what we're doing. We're not perfect, we don't profess to be perfect, but I think we do offer hope for everybody, and more importantly, that last bit about university status with Leeds University, that's true quality, that. And I think it's a next step on our journey as an organisation to excel and do the best we can for the people we actually serve locally. And I'm looking forward, even though not forever as the chair, but for the next 10 years in SWYPFT as we grow and develop as an organisation. I personally would like to say a massive thank you. We call ourselves a unitary board. That basically means non-execs and execs will work together. I'd like to thank Mark personally and his exec colleagues. I think we have a good, if not outstanding, executive team. But for me personally as well, I'd like to say a massive thank you to my non-exec colleagues. They always say this, the governors, I call them my governors because I love you all, the governors don't get paid for it, the non-execs don't get a lot to be paid for it, and I often think that's because we do it for the right reasons. So on behalf of myself to my non-exec colleagues, thank you very much indeed. You make my life in this organisation so much better. And there isn't one I wouldn't say is not certainly equal to or better than myself and could stand here and do it. So my non-exec colleagues, thank you very much indeed to all of you. So lastly, we've got a few more minutes left, if that's okay. We're running a little bit behind, but the question is time for you to think, reflect, and ask myself or my exec colleagues and non-exec colleagues anything you might want to ask on behalf of yourselves or an organisation you represent of our board today. Any questions, anything anybody would like to raise? No?
We've got some questions that have been put forward. We asked people if they wanted to put them forward in advance of the meeting, so we do have a few which I'll run through if that's okay. The first one is, following government announcements about the future of the NHS and the 10-year plan, it's expected there's going to be a lot of change for trusts ahead. How has this impacted on SWYPFT, and what impact will we have in the future?
Do you want me to answer that, or Mark, do you want it? Dawn, do you want to answer that? Yeah, just come up, Dawn, and answer it with the mic.
Thank you, Paul. As I alluded to in my slides, there is an awful lot of change, and I think it's our responsibility to understand where that change is an opportunity for us to do better for our communities, and where that is something that is pushing us to do something a bit differently. So, for example, the challenge in the NHS is around productivity. It's a really fair one. Other than primary care, productivity hasn't improved in the NHS since COVID. So it's quite right that we've got a challenge from our democratically appointed leaders around that. So what we will do is look at really careful detail to understand where there are opportunities and where there are challenges. Then in line with our strategies and values, we'll have plans in place to make sure that we address those.
We've got just a couple more. The next one is, we might have touched on this around teaching trust status, but specifically about how will it improve our services and the support that we provide for local people?
Okay, I think we've answered it, but do you want to talk about that, Shuba? Yes. I mean, personally, you know, I think it's one of the most exciting opportunities this trust has ever had. Being only 2 in the country, you do attract different calibre of staff. And if you've got research at the heart of what you do, good education at the heart of what you do, it basically means you're at the cutting edge of what is best practice as well. And as a result of that, you deliver best care and everything else. I think that's a massive benefit of being a teaching trust. I've been in the NHS for 35 years. There is a marked difference between a teaching trust and a non-teaching trust in terms of the calibre of people you attract. So I think that's the future for us. We've never had it. We've had associate teaching status before, but to be recognised as a teaching trust in this way, bringing new calibre of people in, I think is a very, very exciting opportunity. I don't know whether that answers that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard about the trust's restrictions on recruitment. How are you making sure that there remains a high standard of care and that wards are appropriately and safely staffed?
Is that Darryl? Yeah, go for it.
So there's been a lot of conversations about living within our means. So if we think about recruitment, we have a weekly vacancy review panel, and it absolutely prioritises posts to be approved that are required in clinical teams. If we think about the focus on safety at frontline, we have that 7-day oversight by our senior leaders and the care groups who are making sure that the safety is maintained within staffing levels and that escalations are put in place and staff are brought in where needs be. We are particularly looking at some of our corporate vacancies, and that's one of the national requirements of us. But from the point of view of clinical vacancies, that's a clear focus for us to recruit and retain them. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got just one final one. In a financial update sent out to all staff by Mark Brooks, we were informed that £340,000 was authorised for spend on books, journals and subscriptions. My question is, how can this be possible and where was the scrutiny?
Adrian, you want to?
Yep. So whenever we spend money, we always classify it against the spend category, and that one, as Paul's just described, books, journals and subscriptions, is a bit of a catch-all. So it is £340,000. By far the biggest element of that spend is subscriptions, and by far the biggest element of the subscriptions is what we have to pay to the CQC to be registered, so we have no discretion on that one. That's about 2/3 of that spend. Having said that, we've looked at every single subscription that the trust has, line by line. Every exec has had to sign off whether they think that subscription still adds value for money and is essential. we're also trying to make sure that we've got a good awareness of the financial challenges. So for books, we've made some changes to the process for books. So what used to happen is if teams needed a book and they had the budget for it, they would place an order for it. What we do now is that order goes through to the procurement team, and instead of ordering it, they send it to the library team. And the library team check to see whether they already have the book in the library that can be utilised. And if we have, it's free and they can use it. But we've also switched the ordering, so if we do have to buy that book, when it's finished with it then goes into the library. So we can reuse it. So I think that book spend isn't huge, it is the subscription bit that's huge, but I think it's just indicative of the level of focus we are bringing to our non-pay, and I think that simple change in ordering books has delivered, you know, about £10,000 saving.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Anything else? No? Externally? No? Okay, anything else in the room then from that? Well, okay, I'm about to close the meeting now. On behalf of myself and our board and SWYPFT and governors, thank you very much indeed, everybody, for today. As I say, it is an absolute privilege to be your chair. And onwards, upwards, and let's look forward to our future, because I think it's very positive and we give everybody hope and provide the best care we can to local people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, there's drink and water outside if you want everybody. Thank you.